Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening once again and welcome to a new episode of our live program Saudi Sports comes to you live from SR FM. Tonight we're going to tackle different sport issues concerning the sport investment and also the Saudi Premier Leagues beside the other sport topics with our guests. But first we're going to start with Diego Valdes, who is actually Managing Director of Sport Business Institution in Barcelona, to talk more about his previous course that he conducted as an advanced sport investment in Riyadh. Mr. Diego Valdes, thank you very much for joining us in the program.
Salam alaikum. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
We actually are so happy to have you with us from Barcelona. And first of all, we would like to ask you about what is actually your overall impression about your last visit to the kingdom, especially when you conducted that advanced sport investment.
Yes, it was an absolute pleasure to be in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, I delivered a training program for the Saudi Pro League
Mm-hmm.
on advanced sport investment. And the objective was to provide the attendees some key takeaways, some information to help them, understand how to attract potential investors for Saudi clubs,
Mm-hmm.
How to target and attract sponsors through customized approaches, how to connect with fans, how to improve the experiences in the stadium and engage with fans digitally, and overall to develop and professionalize Saudi club executives. So my impressions, having been there in the past few days, were that football is very strong.
Right.
That there is a strong commitment, and you can sense that from talking to people from the different stakeholders in football.
Mm-hmm. Also, how did you see the response of the participants? Actually, I know that our guys here really so open to such a new trend as a sport investment. I know it's been for a long time, but nowadays most of the clubs taking the investment seriously. So, how did you see the response of the participant in that course?
So I think the response was very positive, and one of the key measurements for us anytime we do any type of executive training is the level of engagement.
Right.
And what we saw was that there was very fruitful discussion when we introduced different cases and different material. The participants that were mainly from the clubs but also from other stakeholders in football were very engaged, and they responded positively because they saw that the takeaways that they were getting from the course were allowing them to reflect on how to implement them, to move forward with their own objectives and their own visions within their properties.
Mm-hmm. Also, Mr. Valdes, I know since you've been mingling with those guys and they are actually in a position to make decisions concerning sport investment, what they are actually lacking, to implement good sport investment, and what kind of help you think that you contributed with that course to pass these kind of weakness to them to enhance their ability doing the business in a professional way?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I'd say is that they're in a challenging position and they're responding well. Obviously, there's the vision of 2030 and to have the privatization of the clubs, to transfer obviously the operational, the financial control to private sector. So this is a situation that is it's not an easy task. It's a challenging task for all involved. But what we do see, and what I was able to perceive being in situ, is that people are very committed, and they're open to learn. I think some of the challenges or the so-called weaknesses, if we can say, is that this is something that hasn't been done. This is a new vision And particularly, there's no other benchmark, specifically even in the GCC region. This is something new. So I think they're at a stage, these clubs and these professionals working for these clubs, that they are looking at how to attract this investment. And I think that anytime you can have foreign input that looks at benchmarks that have been done in other competitions, other leagues, other properties,
right,
evidently taking into consideration the local idiosyncrasies. But I think they're moving in the right direction, and particularly the commitment of FPL and President Moussali Al-Noumar to have these types of programs from abroad can only benefit all involved.
Generally speaking, how was the feedback about the course? What you are hearing from the people who was attending, and also what is actually they wish to have, beside what you are actually delivered to them in that particular course.
Well, I think anytime you are entering into an executive program, there's two elements that you need to focus on. Number one is the more structural, theoretical approach, and then the practical, hands-on, customized learning. So what we did when we designed this program for the SPL was we wanted to have those two components covered. So the first day focused mainly on providing more of a structural overview, looking at we could call more of a theoretical type of approach, and then what our aim was to have the second day where participants would engage and discuss, and we're glad to say that that's the feedback that we received, that they found that the discussions were productive. One of the feedback comments that we received constantly was that a lot of the people working for these clubs don't necessarily talk much to each other because they're focused on their objectives and their own perspective, but there is no real opportunity for them to come in and speak about their challenges and their opportunities with their opposite members of other clubs. So this is also an initiative that it's not just about what you take away from the learning, but also the relationships and the connections you make. So the feedback that we got was overwhelmingly positive, and I believe we covered both the theory and the practical approach.
Very good. Also, as an expert, how do you see the future of sport investment in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like I said, I think it's a long-term vision. But what I do see is that, and this is something that I perceived being there myself, is that Saudi football is very strong.
Right.
When we were there, we attended the match between Al Hilal and Al Nasser, and I must say that, frankly, I never expected this type of ambiance, this type of engagement with the fans, and it is something that many properties around the world would really aim to have, this type of connection and engagement with the fans. So I think that from an investment standpoint, it's important that the professionals working for these clubs are equipped with the right knowledge, with the formal skills, to be able to prepare them to be in leadership positions for this transition, so that they are prepared to have the investors be able to take the operational and financial control, which is what they're aiming for. So at this stage, I think they're in the right direction, and these types of programs and these types of initiatives can only add to helping in that transition.
Very interesting. Also here, Mr. Diego Valdes, people sometimes get confused about sponsorship, marketing, and investment. You know, they actually get mixed up with this. Sometimes we see somebody signing a contract or something for sponsorship and they call it investment. Sometimes they're just doing some kind of marketing for certain brands and also they call it investment. You know, if you can elaborate talking about the differences between sponsorship, marketing and investment.
Well, at the end of the day, everything is investment because you're having an external stakeholder invest. The main difference, of course, is that when you invest as a sponsor, you don't have equity, right? You are investing in a property to be able to align yourself or your brand to the values that that club represents so that you can then, activate that and market towards your consumer as a brand. And investment, properly speaking, would obviously be having an investment group that would come in and inject capital so that they could then be able to operate and have more control. So at the end of the day, it's investment because the clubs are bringing in capital or revenue. But the main difference is the equity that you get as an ownership group that you do not get as a sponsoring brand.
Indeed. Also, people saying that privatization is the cradle of investment. Without having a good privatization for the clubs, you cannot have a very solid, clear investment roadmaps, actually. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen in the past, especially in Europe, we've seen in the past 25, 30 years that football has become a big business, and like any business, it needs to be operated by professionals that are equipped and that understand how the ecosystem operates. Having privatization is what allows this to operate as any other business, taking, of course, into consideration that football is a unique, a unique business.
Right.
But definitely. When you have state backing, this in certain ways can slow down the growth. So it is important that once privatization is implemented, that there is a proper structure in place in order to continue growth and bringing in revenue and increasing audiences and having the opportunity to grow the property.
Right. Also, before you go, Mr. Valdes, let me ask you this about how important is it to have for any clubs actually to have investment expertise in their board in order to increase their the values of their revenues?
It's essential. It's essential. One of the things we do at Sports Business Institute Barcelona is we bring executives from the top clubs and the top properties to, like I said, to equip the people that undertake our programs. And one of the things we were discussing, in fact, earlier this week with an executive that is the former director of Liverpool Football Club in the marketing department. And he was sharing with us different pillars that are important. So, from a growth standpoint, it's important to understand how to bring in the revenue, how to expand the audiences.
Indeed.
But it's not just about that. It's also about how are you going to be, engaging the fans and creating an engagement and an entertainment for them to be able to associate with your property.
Right.
At the same time, it's about building a brand, both at a domestic and an international level, creating that awareness, looking at what future trends are coming in to engage the next generation of fans, looking at innovation, and also having the right approach to service your stakeholders, whether it's your investors or your sponsors or even internally. So I think it is very important that the professionals that are running these organizations and these clubs understand and have a holistic vision of the industry to be able to be, like I said, equipped to go out and look for investment.
Okay, and finally, do you have any training plans, in the future to come back and conduct or just deliver a similar courses with the same concepts?
Yes, one of the things that we were discussing, in fact, when we were with the SPL executives is that as a result of this first initiative, which was a starting point, there is an opportunity to delve deeper. There is an opportunity to look at additional programs that would allow for, all the executives, all the club employees that would undertake it, to have an opportunity to have that second step. So the first step was, provide an introduction, get everybody engaged, get everybody to connect, and look at, some hands-on key takeaways. But evidently, this is a subject that requires, lots of in-depth conversations and knowledge, and that would be the aim for us to be able to deliver additional programs that, that would meet that objective.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Diego Valdes, thank you very much for your inputs with us in the program, and really we enjoy your inputs and we thank you for your efforts, and hopefully inshallah we're going to see you in Riyadh soon with other training programs. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Inshallah, I'll have an opportunity to be back to your wonderful country. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much.